Have you ever heard fishermen use the expression, I'm going to change up my presentation? How many fishermen do you think have changed up their presentation to empty water, no fish underneath them, trying to do something different, going insane? Well, this is my crash course on I wish I knew then what I know now. Here I found tunas jumping on my radar. I marked them from over a mile away, and we pulled up, and here's what we found.
Watch. Let me get a video of this. Or get up front, Todd.
So not many people know you can use your radar to find tuna on the surface.
Dude, look at them airing out.
Without birds.
Oh, dude, far left. I'm coming. Dude, somebody get my, fuck, we don't have the casting rod. Dude.
And this is just one of many examples I'm going to show you guys of how to catch more fish when you go offshore, how to maximize your chances. And please, if you guys haven't subscribed to our channel, please go ahead and click that subscribe button right now and learn how to catch more tuna. So when I'm offshore, especially when it's nice, I like having my bird mode set up on my radar. I put it in the bird mode setting and then go scan the gain a little bit higher until I see some fuzz. This allows me not only to pick up birds, which are red, yellow marks, but also to find rips, believe it or not. You can see rips on your radar. I'm going to show you what they look like. And this is the scientific reason why. Have a fish setting on your fish finder when you go offshore. Especially when I'm hunting these spring eddies or fall eddies or any temperature break, I like having my temperature graph up, a depth finder, and then the radar. And the radar in bird mode. If you guys aren't using this little Garmin graph when you're chasing these breaks or edges, you need to. My opinion is get to where the fish are, go to where the fish are, and the lure is secondary. What you're putting in front of them is secondary at that point, if you're putting it in front of them. That's my opinion. I'll have probably a lot of lure companies that are upset, but I think that's the truth. I think it's more important getting over the fish than presenting something to them. And people say presentation is key, but you're not presenting anything if there's not a fish around. I'm not going to tell you guys what an SST chart is. Here is what I'm going to tell you. So there are countless videos on YouTube of how to read SST charts and how to do this and blah, 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 blah. And they're super boring and non-interesting. What I'm going to tell you guys today here is it's not about looking at one temperature chart one day before you go fishing. The most important rule is looking at that water constantly, seeing what it does on a daily basis. If you're taking a peek at a chart and then going fishing, yeah, you're going to land on fish here and there, but you're not going to know what to do if something does not go right. Or you got to have a plan B. So keeping an eye on the water conditions in general is my rule of thumb. Don't think you're going to understand this stuff by looking at a chart one time, but the way to understand it is through trial and error, taking notes, picking spots, keeping track of that spot, and then looking back on it, whether you caught, and most importantly, if you didn't catch, going back and comparing that. I'm going to show you guys another piece of water real quick, what I do. I look for these little fans off the SSTs. Not these main breaks, but these little fans you can see, they're very faint. Those fish get in those little fans of water like that, especially bluefin. You can see where the current is really pushing up against that cold water current there. That is going to be a good spot to check. So next I would look at these contour lines. But the last thing I wanted to cover is different features of eddies that I've had success with. Okay, now back to where I left off, contour lines. So you're checking out a spot. The first thing you want to do is find the contact point of the area that you're looking to fish. This is a sweet little clip of how to do that.
Flat distance between it, but at one point, the contour lines come close together. In other words, the increase in depth becomes more rapid, and it's for just a short distance. Dude, this is a sharper break. It broke sharper, deeper, faster at this point, and in most all situations, that's going to be your contact point.
So every lump has a contact point. Where the lump is most prone to getting hit to the open sea winds and currents. Find that is the best spot on every lump. Every reef, every drop off, every structure change, where the contact point is, where is it making contact with the open sea? Generally speaking, that's going to be your best spot. So once I understood these contact points, I looked at a bathymetry chart again, topography, the bottom of the ocean chart again, and I started finding these contact points on these lumps, these different structures that we fish. And you can start to really see the way water moves on top of these lumps and drains off of them with the tide and the water movement from the prevailing sea current and the prevailing winds, the primary drivers of these contact points. The guy that I showed you is a freshwater fisherman. He fished lakes and ponds. There's so much to learn from bass fishermen and the way they approach contour and the way they approach a lake that they've never been to. It's very similar to what we're doing if they're trying to find, bass in the wintertime on a new lake. It's very similar to what we're doing. So thinking about those things and applying it to a much larger scale, it seems to work. So just keep that in mind. It's never the gospel of fishing, as everybody knows. You could think that you got them pinned or you got them figured out, and the next day they're gone. So it's fishing, it's not catching, but that is really one of the cool things that I've learned about ocean bottom and fishing ocean bottom, especially for the fish that we're after. I'm not really much of a bottom fish guy, but casting, trolling, pelagics, fish that are on the move like me. If you're a fisherman on the East Coast, you may or may not know what I'm talking about. A lot of captains on the East Coast use Loran. This slang that captains use on the radio are the bottom three numbers of the Loran lines as the north-south, and then the depth as their east-west. And understanding how these captains use this took me forever to figure this out until somebody told me. And then here's some guy on Titlefish, not me, talking about being confused about hearing the same thing I heard over the radio. That sparked my interest, and I was like, I got to figure out what these captains are talking about. A lot of offshore fishermen spend way too much time fishing in dead water. Part of being successful out here is, if you're not seeing what you like, is not being afraid to pick up and run. When I get to a spot, I look for a signs hierarchy. These indicate whether I'm going to be staying here or I'm going to be looking elsewhere. The first one, what's your bait finder look like, your depth finder? Are you seeing bait? Are you seeing stuff on your depth finder? Or is it empty? If it's empty, I won't always run right away, but I will look elsewhere in the signs hierarchy to see if there's anything else around.
In rev.
If you are seeing birds, take note of what they're doing. Are they low on the water, circling? Are they high up, circling? Are they just scanning around the area? Are they staying concentrated in one area? All these things will tell you what fish are doing underneath the water. And at the end of this section, I'm going to give you guys an overview on what each bird action, so to speak, means. Or best case scenario, you see tunas jumping. I wasn't marking a lot of fish that day, or bait, but I was seeing them on the surface. So I knew they were there, so I kept working the area, got bit. Sometimes these fish boiling on the surface can be hard to catch when they're keyed in on a certain bait. Scaling down your bait, something smaller, changing up your presentation is gonna help. But if I see none of the following, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm picking up, I'm running somewhere different, going to plan B, I'm looking around. I'm not gonna keep fishing in dead water. Fishermen who sit in dead water and fish are just looking for an excuse to get out of the house. They're not really trying to catch a fish. This is gonna give you guys a complete overview of when you see birds and what they're doing, what it means in relation to fishing and what you're trying to do. Think of the whole continental shelf as structure. A lot of times these fish are using the natural 100 line, and a lot of times us fishermen are using the canyons only. I can't tell you the amount of times I've caught these fish to the north or the south of the canyon. In the spring and in the fall, the water prevails over the structure. So the water's to the north or the south, and you're fishing in the canyon, you're gonna be SOL. The older I get, the more important the chlorophyll maps become to me, and the less important SST maps become. The reason I say this, yes, they do come in on the blue water, the tuna, but they come into on the blue water to get to the green water. So finding those blue-green transition areas, I've learned has been super, super important. More important in a lot of cases, especially once the water blends, of the water temperature. So don't be obsessed with the SSTs. Start paying attention to the chlorophyll and the watercolor. So I briefly want to cover the different types of watercolors and what they mean in relation to tuna fishing. When I'm tuna fishing, mainly focused on finding blended blue-green water, and even sometimes I will fish green water in general. Especially once the water starts to blend. If they're in an area where they've been, a lot of times the watercolor doesn't matter. They're going to be there. But especially in the spring and fall, I like to hunt the blended blue-green is the best. Bite windows are often not really thought about. Everyone just leaves early in the morning, you go out fishing, you get out, you fish late. One bite window worth mentioning is definitely throughout the summer, we get a thermocline rise after the heat of the day. And a lot of times there will be a good spike in a bite or fish activity when that thermocline starts to come up. So that could be like a pre-evening event a lot of times, which is pretty cool. That's not talked about a lot, bite window, so to speak. And then also bad weather fishing, like pre-front, coming into a low pressure system, fish like to feed, and then also there's also random sporadic bites throughout the day. That's why it's important to be there. But, I've noticed over my time that afternoon, evening bite in the summertime starts getting really good. I like to say when the thermocline rise, big eye die. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. I also have a couple honorable mentions that I didn't talk about really in the video, but also some things to avoid out there that can also be false signs, so to speak, like dolphins with no tuna. A lot of times when you see dolphins traveling, jumping, but they're covering ground, they're not circling. Don't go after them. They're a waste of time. Sometimes in, different coasts, not so much the East Coast, but, on the West Coast, different story. A lot of times those dolphins are moving and those tuna are traveling with the dolphins moving. Not very often around here do they do that. A lot of times you will see tuna with dolphins when you see dolphins circling an area, keep coming back and, crashing bait on the surface or crashing something on the surface in the same area. But when they're moving, 9 times out of 10, they're not worth chasing. To avoid is when you see terns picking, when you see those little white birds picking on the water, on the surface. A lot of times they do chase tuna. They eat the sand eels, the remnants of the sand eels. But a lot of times they're eating small, tiny bait. Like, I mean, stuff that is below the bluefin's food chain, they're not going to eat. You know, I've seen it before. It's like tiny little bait. I don't even know what it's called, but when they get on those tiny little baits like that, they 99.9% of the time do not have fish underneath of them. There's always that 0.1%, whatever, you know how it is. And then as far as eddies, I did want to cover, I know I did mention in the video, warm ring, cold ring eddies. Basically, a warm ring eddy it's a ring on the outside of it that's the warmest, usually the warmest water associated with it. And that's usually the fastest current. And the complete opposite of a cold ring eddy, and they're just exactly what they are, is what they say it in their name, but it's a cold ring on the outside. It can sometimes have a warmer core, a lot of times has a warmer core, a cold ring, but it is a colder outside ring. I've had success in both cold and warm ring eddies, especially when, you know, if it's a cold ring eddy and it's pulling in some cooler water in the summertime and it's bluer, cooler water. A lot of times I've had success in those cool ring eddies as well as warm ring eddies as well in the spring when the water's cold and these fish are looking to migrate. But there's also a lot of scientific stuff to them, how they form, how they, you know, basically how they meander, etc. That is a lot to comprehend at one time, so I'm not going to get into all that. Usually the most productive edge on an eddy is the western edge of it, the edge that's closest to land, I should say. So always check that first edge. You're running past it if you want to go, you know, if the water ain't warm enough for you, or if you want to go check the deep, you're fishing for big eyes, whatever, you know, you're going to run past it anyway. So you might as well stop and fish it for a minute. Even throw a couple lines out. Like, you don't have to put your whole spread out. I tell people this all the time. It's like, don't put 12 rods out and troll for 10 minutes. Like, if you're just checking an area, put a deep diver down and a way back ballyhoo and see what happens. You know, just troll through the area. You can even kind of keep your speed up. You know, I've caught tuna, you know, when you think you're going to catch a wahoo, and caught wahoo when you think you're going to catch a yellowfin. So, you know, speed a lot of times is just in our heads, or what our baits look like the best when you're pulling them. So those were some honorable mentions that I thought that are worth discussing. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe to our channel if you guys don't mind, please. It really helps us out. I follow like the analytics on our page, and I see that 75% of you guys that watch our videos aren't subscribed. Please, it really helps us out getting the algorithm. When we get more subscribers, more people viewing, more people are like you guys are going to see this. And you guys have been everything thus far. Thank you guys so much. And also, just to note, the app's still coming, just a lot of development. And I wanted things the way I want them, so it's going to take a little longer. I'm not settling for anything less. So this is going to be a game-changing app. So I'm going to take my time on it, make sure it's done right. But we're looking like early next year to early spring next year, probably like January to April-ish. So, but either way, hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Until next time, stay bent.